So welcome back. It's time to proceed to the next session, next panel. The title is Electricity Interconnections, Enabler of Green Energy Supply and Diversification. And I think it's quite interesting panel. We'll try to touch upon technical issues that will have to do with supporting grids, electricity grids that will really allow us to move to the next step of the energy transition in a local scale, in a regional scale. So to move forward, I would like to introduce the panel, which has very distinguished speakers and representatives of the Greek DSO, TSO, and of course, the private company. So on the left side is Mr. Tassos Manos, the CEO of the Hellenic Electricity Distribution Network Operator, Dr. George Pechlivanoglu, the Vice President of the UNIS Energy Group, and last but not least, Mr. Ioannis Margaris, who is the Deputy Chairman and Director General, Technology Systems Development and Strategy of the Independent Power Transmission Operator of Greece. So I would propose starting with a short introduction from all our speakers.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, sorry. Thank you for the invitation, and it's an honor to be here today with you. From my side, I'm the CEO of HEDNO, the Hellenic Energy Distribution Network Operator. HEDNO is a monopoly and it is responsible for the medium and low voltage of Greece. It has about close to 8 million customers and a network of 242,000 kilometers, almost 6 times the perimeter of Earth. So we are in a major transformation and modernization program, and later on we will discuss how this is connected also and affects the grids and the corresponding connections.
Thank you. So Mr. Pechlivanoglu, please.
Thank you very much, Chairman. Thank you very much for the invitation. It feels very nice to be for the fourth time in this great event, and we're happy to be able to exchange knowledge and information with distinguished guests from all over the world. So I represent UNIS, a renewable energy and green tech company, which is trying to develop all the technologies and the projects that will bring us into the era of new energy. We try to integrate infrastructure projects, energy distribution projects with international interconnections, and renewable energy projects in multiple scales, from homes and buildings to large-scale facilities, together with e-mobility, storage, and all the new technologies that will allow the country and the region to become really an energy hub, an important force in the green transition era, as well as in the effort to diversify our energy resources. And I would just say that overall, the idea of the group is to utilize its great connections with academia all over the world, US companies, technology companies, and also other partnerships to enhance the technological innovation in the green tech space, trying to move along what Ambassador Tsounis mentioned before, not only developing the new technologies and new renewable energy sources for Greece, but for the entire region. So that's in a nutshell who we are and what we do.
Thank you. Mr. Margaris.
Thank you very much, Spiros, and thank you for the invitation to be here. And it's a very critical moment for Europe and Greece in terms of energy security, and I believe that it's up to us, and I mean our generation, and of course our institutions, to make sure that this moment will go on as secure as possible and as efficiently as possible. We, as IPTO, the TSO of Greece, we have a double role, as we say. On the one hand, We are investors in the transmission system infrastructure, so we are implementing a 5 billion euro investment program up to 2030. But at the same time, we are the ones responsible for the system adequacy. So what energy transition means in our times has to be considered within many different perspectives. I believe, as also the previous speakers mentioned, and it's one of the topics of these discussions today, without having the necessary grids, and when we say grids now, we are not talking about internal grids, but actually interconnections between different countries and continents, and without having the necessary storage, I believe that we will face significant challenges. So I hope that we will have the time to elaborate on these issues today and, of course, in the coming months. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So we're talking about the interconnection. In fact, we're talking about grids that will support electricity penetration and distribution. So one major issue, and I'm talking to Mr. Manos here, is how a proper grid development could aid towards energy independence and lower energy costs, especially for our customers.
Thank you for the question. It is a twofold question. I'll talk first of all about the proper grid development, which, as also mentioned by IPTO, is very crucial for achieving all of our national and European energy and climate goals. It is by definition, and we know it and we see it every day now, that lower energy costs and energy interdependence rely heavily on the distribution networks and the transmission and their modernization. So let's start from the HEDNO side, what we have done for that and how we achieve these goals, or how do we contribute from our role to these goals. RES, renewable energy sources, in HEDNO network back in 2018 were calculated around only 4 gigawatt. Between then and now, 2019 to 2022, we have managed to increase it to almost more than 6 gigawatt by more than 42%. And the plan, by end of 2023, it is to reach close to 10 gigawatt, provisionally, that we will have also the connection of the 2 gigawatt of electrical space dedicated to net metering. This means an increase of 158% in just 4 years. Remember that big companies that used to be in the broader private sector, only the procurement circle is 2 to 3 years. We would be discussing about the potential increase, not the actual results already delivered to the ground. Now, this has been done by accelerating in all dimensions. And it's really interesting that back in 2019, we had 1,500 applications, while now we have exceeded 20,000. And only 2022, we're planning to connect 3,500 renewable energy sources projects to our grid. This means every working day, 16 new projects are connected, activated, and operate to our grid. This is a number in the performance beyond any imagination in the past. And for this reason, we have managed to achieve within 2022-23 the targets of NEST, National Climate Energy Plan, of 2025. And by 2025, we will have achieved the targets of 2030. So the one item of the party is the grid needs to be accelerator, the catalyst of having renewable energy sources, of providing this ability to improve the corresponding cost. And now the grids also need to have flexibility. And flexibility has to do with automation and smart grid. In the past, we had the typical waterfall approach. Waterfall approach means that we had the production, the transmission, the distribution, and the consumption. This now is a it's a multi-connection equation, because mainly in the distribution, you have also the electric vehicles, you have the renewables, you may have a battery. Same stands also for transmission to other areas. And the typical source is completely changed. So there are 9, I would say, main items that we have to work on for the zero emission economy to achieve it through smart grids. And why smart grids are so important? More efficient transmission of electricity and reliable power, much quicker restoration of electricity after disturbance, reduced operations management costs for utilities, reduced peak demand, which will also help lower electricity rates, because by the moment you have a full view of the various elements of production, it means that you're not requiring other types of very expensive production. Better integration of customer-owned power generation systems, what we're talking, improved security, smart devices and smart homes, it's coming. In other countries, it's already there. And paving the road, of course, for EVs and other items. So in the next 2 minutes to add another 2 important items, HERNO is taking all the actions to rapidly transform its network to this necessary smart grid. Only for 2023, the corresponding investments are above 56 million, including installation of telemetric systems, GIS, expansion of network supervision and control infrastructure. With these automations, we're planning to improve by more than 15% the performance of and the quality of our electricity on the network through use of remotely controlled load switches and automatic reclosing switches and all this technical stuff. At the same time, by putting the proper automations in all elements of our value chain, we'll be in better control to fully control and operate our network. So these are some of the major projects we're working on and will help us address and support the needs of the future, of this completely new reality. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Peklimvanou, how do you see the role of private group of companies in the same concept? So we're talking about larger interconnection now, not local scale, as Mr. Manos was talking about. So how do you see this grid development could help our country or our region towards energy independence and also lowering the energy costs?
Great. So this is a very crucial question. Traditionally, the private sector was a follower. So the state was dictating policies, and the state organizations were developing the infrastructure, such as the grids, and the private sector was following, integrating standard solutions. In the case of Greece or other countries of the same size, the private sector was not only a follower, but was also utilizing technologies that were developed elsewhere. We believe that this era is gone. The private sector has to be a major player in infrastructure and has to be an active developer of new technologies. The reason why UNIS is investing in R&D and international collaborations is in order to introduce new technologies and not to just import them. So based on that, we see the issue of grid, smart grid and interconnections, a multi-scale issue. So we do develop processes, technologies, and solutions for small scale, and we can discuss possibly later about all these things, about e-mobility, smart grids, and all that. And at the same time, we embark in a journey of investing in infrastructure of very large scale. So by introducing international interconnections, together with smart grid technologies and large-scale storage technologies, we are able to allow international players to contribute with renewable energy within the Greek system. So by allowing specifically, talking about our project, by allowing renewable energy generation from Egypt or the nearby region to enter through the Greece-Africa power interconnection, we are able to inject low-cost renewables into the system. Now, this can be used with the use of large-scale batteries, with a time offset in order to trade renewable energy at a beneficial price difference, or to generate green hydrogen, or anything that ensures the stability of the system and the introduction of additional green energy. So in the end, the private sector, as we see and we want to actually actively contribute, now enters the grid infrastructure together, of course, with the traditional actors in order to allow the addition of renewables, but also the addition of new technologies in the system. A final comment is the fact that energy trading plays a massive role in today's grids, and interconnections are an inherent part of the trading process. Batteries are the same. So you cannot separate these things anymore, and that's why private actors are now inherently part of this ecosystem.
Okay, thank you. Are you having a problem or what? Okay. Mr. Margais, I know that many people, many market players see IPTO as a major player in terms of, stabilizing the energy market in Greece and also expanding our, borders, our energy borders. So how do you see, what are your plans in terms of expanding the existing interconnections or, making some inside our country, because we have a lot of missing interconnections, especially with the islands. And what's your, let's say, 10 years or 20 years plan for that?
Let me give you a brief overview of the latest developments. As you said, we have started the interconnection plan for the islands. So lately we finished a very important interconnection in the Sporades complex of islands that is now in operation since July. And we have also started the interconnection of Naxos with Santorini, which is a major touristic destination also and has the national interest. So there we have already completed the laying of the submarine cable between Santorini and Naxos, and of course we are moving on with the execution of the substation within Santorini Island. And within 2022, we will be able to contract the project of interconnecting Attica with the rest of the Cyclades Islands, and I mean Milos, Folegandros, and Serifos, completing the complex of Cyclades interconnection. At the same time, the major project that we are currently executing is, of course, the Ariadne interconnection between Crete and Attica. In that project, we have already completed the laying of the submarine cable for the one of the two poles, around 170 kilometers. And within the next 6 months, we will complete the submarine cable laying for both poles. And at the same time, of course, constructing the converter stations in the two sides of Attica and Crete, making it possible for the interconnection to be in operation within 2024, which is our target. We are moving on also with the renovation of the island interconnections in the Ionian Sea. These are old interconnections. They have more than 30 years of operation. And right now we are contracting the Zakynthos Peloponnese interconnection. And within 2022, we are also going to be able to tender the interconnections of Kefalonia and Lefkada and moving on with Kerkyra. These projects in the Ionian side amount to around 100 million euros project. There are the integration of renewables, however, has also made it very obvious that the infrastructure in the interconnected system needs further upgrade and expansion. And within 2022, again, we are completing the east corridor of extra high voltage, and I mean the 400 kV line between Megalopoli and Corintho, and the extra high voltage substation in Corintho. And we are also going to be able to contract the 400 kV line between Corintho and Koumountouros. With that project, we will be able to have a Peloponnese, which is now, as you know, congested in terms of further expansion of renewables in the coming years. The 10-year plan of IPTO, of course, includes several upgrades of lines and substations in the rest of the country. However, if I have 2 or 3 minutes, I would like to focus also on the international interconnections. And I'm referring, of course, the biggest interconnection that is in a very mature stage now is the interconnection between Greece, Cyprus, and Israel, the Eurasia Interconnection Project. We have been supporting this project for several years on the technical level, and now we are more or less ready to say that the project is about to enter the execution stage. This project will be the first project to connect Middle East with the European market, with all the important results of such a relation. We also have, we are finalizing with our neighbors from Italy the new interconnection that will be implemented in the coming years between Greece and Italy. As you know, we have already an existing interconnection there of DC technology, and we are more or less getting close to the decision of moving on with a 1,000 megawatt new high voltage DC interconnection. The rest of the borders of Greece, and I mean with Albania, North Macedonia, Bulgaria, and Turkey, we are also studying the upgrade of our interconnections and the replacement of existing interconnections with higher capacity interconnections. We are also now executing the new line with Bulgaria that will be commissioned in the coming few months. However, and this is important to understand in Greece and, I mean, for all the market players, Greece is a relatively small country in terms of local load. Our peak load is around 9 gigawatt. Right now, we have in Greece around 10 gigawatt of installed renewables. Today, as we speak, September 2022, we have already 12 gigawatt of connection offers that are binding. This means that 12 gigawatt of renewables already reserve the electrical space. So for us as an operator, we have in total 22 gigawatt of renewables already in either in operation or in the position to be operating today. The target of Greece for renewables is to reach the 25 gigawatt target in 2030. So the question here is, are these projects going to be executed in the coming 2 to 3 years of renewables? I mean, the 12 gigawatt of renewables that are already reserved the electrical capacity. So this is a major question that the market and the institutions and of course the state have to consider. If we are going to have 12 gigawatts of renewables installed in the coming 2 to 3 years, this means that within 2025, we will be able to reach the target of 2030. Of course, we don't finish there. There are major, bigger goals for 2050 and so on, but we need to understand that when we discuss about grids and renewables, we need to know the real data. The second thing is that we will go on more than 25 gigawatts of renewables, 27, 28 gigawatts. Let me tell you that our 10-year plan for 2030 says that we will be able to host 28 gigawatts of renewables in 2030. So 3 gigawatts more than the official national target through the interconnection of islands and so on. At that point, given the size of the country, there will be a challenge for the energy flows where to go. So this is why I'm saying that if we don't start now to integrate storage in the grid of Greece, in the transmission and distribution system, there will be no corridor for this energy to flow, and this does not have to do with our own international interconnections. Right now, we have international interconnections that are much bigger than the energy flow that actually flows. And this has to do with how the transmission systems look on the north of our country, and I mean within the Balkan region. So to put it shortly, in order not to lose a lot of time, we need a big initiative, let's say. It cannot be done on the level of the TSOs. Of course, we try through our own institutions, we discuss with our colleagues from the other Balkan countries, but we would need a strategic initiative from Europe and international initiative to work on the Balkan region as a corridor for renewable energy flows from the north to the south and mainly from the south to the north. If Europe really is at crossroads now in terms of energy security, If we don't build new transmission corridors from the south to the north to the center of Europe, I'm afraid that we will never be able to reach the targets in gigawatts that we are discussing and thinking. Of course, then we have the interconnection with Egypt as well, as mentioned before. We are working on this project with our colleagues from EETC, the transmission operator of Egypt, since 1 year now, and we are very close to contract the first feasibility and cost-benefit studies for such an interconnection. The perspective of this project is, of course, to bring cheap green energy from Egypt to Europe, and this is why it's very important that we have made the decision to fund our first studies through the REPowerEU mechanism. But again, this energy will have to flow to Greece, and from Greece it has to flow to the center of Europe, where the consumption, of course, is higher. I believe that, as I said before, grids are necessary, infrastructure, of course, is necessary, but right now, what we face today, September 2022, it's not the lack of grids, and I'm talking for the grid that we are operating, the high voltage grid. What we are lacking is a mechanism to ensure that the renewables that reserve capacity are actually being executed. And of course, we are here to work with the market and the state on how the storage could be accelerated and installed in the coming 1, 2, 3, 4 years within Greece. Otherwise, we will face significant challenges in the operation of the system.
Thank you for the comprehensive approach. So, Mr. Peklivanoglu, one issue is that how do you see your positioning in this status, and based on the geopolitical parameters that might affect, different projects that you are interested or could be interested in the future?
Yes, that's a very good point. I would say it is very important to take into account whenever anyone is developing this sort of projects, be it interconnections or large-scale renewables or storage systems. One has to take into account the basic geopolitical parameters and restrictions. So one thing what we try to do, and I cannot speak for any other private actors, I can say only what the mentality of UNIS on that would be. First of all, is to really take care and be extremely careful in implementing projects and make sure that they follow the international law. Specifically for the interconnections, going through the exclusive economic zone between Greece and Egypt is a no-brainer. I don't personally think that the projects that are outside of this exclusive economic zone, given the sensitive, character of the area, will get a green light. But that's again my own estimation. The other thing is to be very careful in assessing the impact, overall holistic impact of these projects, not only for the country, for the region, for the local population, and so on. So we try to use existing infrastructure when it is available and to have a minimal amount of impact on the overall region. Specifically for the interconnection, we interconnect from Crete, from the point of Atherinolakos area, which already has high capacity electrical infrastructure, in an effort to use existing facilities as much as possible in order to minimize the impact. Last but not least, we try to mobilize the right investors and the right vendors for the future of these projects. It is critical to mobilize Western investors and to make sure that we are able to stick to the EU policy and NATO policy and Western policy in terms of who puts the money, to put it bluntly, for these projects. We are already in several discussions with American investors. We would really like to have US involvement in this very critical project of interconnecting Greece with Egypt. I think we will be successful in that. And the same thing goes for the technology. We need to make sure that Western technology is really present in these projects. And one of the reasons that we are also starting our business activities in USA with our branch in Unis USA is to facilitate this exchange. Only by exchanging technology and information, we are able to mobilize US or Western technology to be involved in these projects in our corner of the world. So overall, I would say that now that the private sector is getting involved in geopolitical projects, we all have to be a little bit more worried about the geopolitical extent of our projects. And we have to be careful to respect international law and to go along with what is said by the major geopolitical actors.
Thank you. As the time ran out, I would like to conclude with one question for Mr. Manos. I know that many people, I can really understand how hard your work is to modernize an existing grid while it operates at the same time. It's very difficult, and some people don't really understand that. But many people, especially in the renewables field, they really ask for faster investments from your side in order to connect to the grid, which is something that everybody in the renewables area want. So if you were to choose or to select between two, factors, so what would be the most important for you? Is this funding issues that really delay you, or is it time that you would ask for somebody else?
Great. First of all, let me give you a few more elements from the history of HEDNO. HEDNO, the period of 2015 to 2019, had an annual CapEx plan of 150 million per year. It was the only distribution operator network in Europe losing value. So it has a gap of close to 750 million euros of investments between 2014 and 19, to be exact. Now, when we started the restructuring of HEDNO, we started from the 150, we climbed up to 170, to 120. Now we're going to close this year to 170 million euros, so almost double in 3 years' time, planning to go to 350 next year. No, it's not an issue of available cash. There is the available cash, but the speed where you can really increase recovering and correcting missing items of 5 years, it cannot be beyond a level. Already doubling it by 100% in 3 years' times. Whenever I'm discussing with DSO colleagues, other CEOs in Europe, the typical response is, no, this cannot happen. So this is the typical one. And I'll give you one more metric. We're modernizing our distribution centers, big substations around Greece. We have around 250 common substations with IPTO and so on and so forth. So these have, on average, 2 to 3 transformers, 600 pieces. The last 70 years. So you can do the average, how many per year. And we are planning to modernize and order, and we are already in the procurement phase, more than 40, 50 pieces. What it would take in 10, 12 years, we're trying to do it in 2. But it cannot happen faster than that. We're talking about a network 6 times the perimeter of Earth. We're talking about 4,500,000 poles. We're talking about 15 million of insulators. I mean, the numbers are beyond any imagination. So to this extent, we drive this car much faster than it can. And we are continuously improving and faster. So it's not an issue of capital. We have the plan, we have the capital, but we need some time. And this time is usually 3 to 5 years.
Thank you very much. Thank you all for your participation, for your comments and your discussion here. And I think it's a very interesting panel. Thank you all.
Thank you.